What's going on, you guys? It's your boy Patrick, aka Addicted to Combat, back for another week of UFC fights. After that long, lonely week off, I have missed talking fights with you guys, and now we have 6 consecutive back-to-back-to-back UFC events, starting with this Saturday, UFC Vegas 62, which features a women's flyweight bout between Viviane Araujo and Alexa Grasso. We have 12 fights on this card now. A short notice replacement was just named for Joanderson Brito, so I'll have that broken down as well as the other 11 fights. I'll have some awesome guests on my live stream for the Wednesday shows. Starting with this week, we have the great Liam Picks Fights to join us this Wednesday night. I'll keep you posted on the time of that stream. It'll be on Twitter, so follow me there. Hit that like, hit that subscribe. We're going to have some great content coming out. We're coming off of that victorious UFC Vegas 61, another women's main event where we named the underdog, and we got that bet. Made us go profitable. Let's make some more money on this card. Without further ado, let's break into this 12-fight offering. Okay, first fight of the prelims is a wacky welterweight fight between Pete Rodriguez, making his second appearance in the octagon here, to face Mike Jackson, who is actually making, I believe, his 4th UFC appearance. His second one this year. Mike Jackson's a guy who is notorious for having some of the worst fights in the UFC. He's 37 years old, went in there against Mickey Gall and lost to him by submission back in the day. Came back 0-1 against the fellow 0-1, 39-year-old CM Punk. That was actually on a pay-per-view main card as well. One of the worst fights ever. Mike Jackson won by a very competitive decision, even though CM Punk was old, talentless, and, death-gassed in round 2 and round 3, Mike Jackson still drug him out to a decision, showed no urgency or cardio ability to finish that fight. So now he's much older, 37 years old. Mike Jackson will have the height and reach advantage here. He's 6'2" and pretty big for 170, but Rodriguez at 25 years old and 5'9", actually the more muscular guy who's fought up at middleweight before early in his amateur career. So he's used to fighting guys the size of Mike Jackson. I think he will just be Mike Jackson's shadow as the shorter man. Rodriguez should look to get on the inside, and he's got pretty good technical boxing, but he's a very good brawler with great power. 7-2 as an amateur, 4-1 as a professional. Pete Rodriguez, I think all of those wins have been knockouts in under 1.5 rounds, so I expect more of the same against Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson just has way too casual of a style. He thinks he can use elusive head movement and, speed to drop his hands low, bait people in. But they usually oblige him and land clean on his chin, just like CM Punk even was doing in their fight back a few years ago, So if CM Punk is landing clean on you, I think Pete Rodriguez can as well. And I think he will knock him out and hopefully put a stop to Mike Jackson's UFC career once and for all. So at minus 675, the favorite here over the plus 500 underdog Mike Jackson. Very unplayable money line. Once the props drop, even the unders and the round 1 KO prop for Pete Rodriguez, I'm sure will be unplayable unless you snipe them early. But just a chance for us to just sit down and watch the first fight of the night, have some entertainment, and just try not to bet on this fight. We saw what happened when you parlay against Mike Jackson last time. I saw a lot of people parlaying that minus 1175 favorite of Dean Barry, and Mike Jackson wins by disqualification and gets his second UFC win. So he has some sort of good luck charm about him, this Mike Jackson character. So just stay off of parlaying Pete Rodriguez. Let's just watch the fight, and hopefully Rodriguez makes a statement with a round 1 knockout. Okay, up next at flyweight, we've got a fun fight between Tatsuro Taira and CJ Vergara. This is a spot where we've got a young 22-year-old prospect making his second walk to the cage in Tatsuro Taira. 11-0, shiny undefeated record, 8-0 as an amateur as well. So a lot of experience for a young guy, very high-level grappler, and some decent striking, and he is the minus 250 favorite in his second walk to the cage here. He made his debut against Carlos Candelario in May, did Tatsuro Taira, and he won the fight by decision, but add a few more seconds onto that fight, he would have stopped him with ground and pound in round 3. Now, CJ Vergara is a guy who has had a couple of fights in the UFC so far, going 1-1. After 4 straight finishes on the regionals, 1 sub-1 minute finish on the Contender Series, Vergara was matched up pretty strongly against Ode Osborne. He lost the fight, but he showed some very good ability to come back, show a strong mentality, and win round 3. And that trend kind of continued against Kletzen Rodriguez in his fight just most recently. I think they were probably trying to get Rodriguez a win over CJ Vergara there. and it did not work out. He weathered the early storm against Rodriguez, and CJ Vergara was able to win rounds 2 and rounds 3, pick up that split decision victory with forward pressure, relentless forward pressure, good striking output. He still is managed on average to, land more strikes than his opponents than he gets hit in return. And he does his best work when he gets on the inside, either with the clinch like we saw in the Contender Series knees, or, work the boxing from the inside. So he is at risk of getting out-transitioned on the ground, and I think that's ultimately going to cost him in this fight against Taira. So there's a lot of good intangibles against CJ Vergara here, or for him, but with Tatsuro Taira, I think this is a very good stylistic matchup for the kid, who's got 5 submissions on his record and just high level. For 22 years old, very high-level BJJ. He snatches up the neck, snatches up the back, very good body triangle, both on top and on bottom, and I really do like him to win this fight. I think the money line is about right at minus 250, not leaving me a lot of extra value on him. I think he does win by submission in this fight, but I don't want to, I've got this thing, if you know me as a bettor, about young guys at like 22 years old that are undefeated. A lot of times it does take that one loss to, level them up, humble them a bit, and they really come back improved after that first loss. Kind of like that thing with CJ Vergara I was talking about, where he just has that grit and that determination to never give up in the fight and keep fighting and accelerating into a fight. I don't know if I've been able to see that proven from Tatsuro Taira yet. So instead of betting his money line for Taira, I do think he wins by submission here, but I'm going to pick the under in this fight. Both guys are actually pretty good finishers. 6 knockouts of 10 wins for CJ Vergara. 8 of 11 wins were a mix of knockouts and submissions for Tatsuro Taira, all pretty early in the fight. So the under 2.5 at plus 170 I like. The fight doesn't go to decision at plus 130 I like. Tatsuro Taira by sub is probably a prop I'll be looking at as well. But yeah, I'm probably going to bet on the unders in this fight and bet on the violence. I do think Tatsuro Taira wins most of the time, and I think he gets it done by an early submission. Up next at women's strawweight, we've got Piera Rodriguez making her second appearance in the octagon, taking on Sam Hughes, who will be making this is her 6th appearance in the octagon, I think, already. So I'm surprised Sam Hughes still has her job, but she's turned things around. She went 0-3 in the UFC. Now she's coming off of 2 back-to-back wins, her only and first wins in the UFC all this year in 2022. She's 7-4 and 2-2 in decisions. And Sam Hughes is once again the underdog at plus 160 odds. Rodriguez can be had at minus 190, which makes sense, 1-0 in the UFC so far, had that Dana White Contender Series victory, and she's 8-0 overall as a pro with 5 stoppages due to strikes. So a very comfortable striker is Piera Rodriguez. Good technique, good distance control and defense, and that's something completely lacking from Sam Hughes. She's got no striking defense at all. Just, her face is a catcher's mitt for punches. She rushes forward. And that is the consolation prize, is she is deceivingly tough, and she moves forward just trying to close distance. Her striking is kind of, not very powerful or respect-earning. She just jabs out there to try to close distance and get in your face to get either the takedown or the clinch against the cage, which would lead to a takedown. So that's what she needs. And that's what she ended up doing against Estela Nunes. Sam Hughes, in her first UFC win earlier this year in April, was able to overwhelm Estela Nunes with forward pressure. And Estela Nunes seemed visibly concerned in round 2 when she kept punching the bloody face of Sam Hughes, and Sam Hughes did not care. She moved forward and got takedowns that she needed, got some ground and pound to close out round 2 and win it. And then in round 3, she was able to, do much of the same. Out cardio, outpace Estela Nunes, who also lost a point in that round, and then get the takedowns and control time to ride out her first victory. So that worked there. Elise Reed, she later fought recently as well, who has no takedown defense or wrestling at all, able to finish her with ground strikes. So, 2 good victories to get her back on track for Sam Hughes. But Piera Rodriguez, I don't think, will fall victim to that game plan. She's got pretty good cardio, pretty good power on the feet, and, she's got good takedown defense as well. So we did see her get taken down by Kay Hansen a couple times in round 1, but she showed some, good butterfly guard to spring back up to her feet, a good ability to wall walk and get back up to her feet, good urgency to get up from her back, which you don't often see at women's strawweight much of the time. So after that, she also showed the good intangible ability to work her way back into a fight, which is kind of rare as well. She lost round 1 to Kay Hansen, came back in round 2 and 3 and dominated. Same with her Contender Series fight. She lost round 2 probably against Machado, came back in round 3. And you see that even in her regional scene pre-UFC tape as well. You know, a lot of late stoppages, the ability to kind of accelerate into a fight. Even in the LFA, she had a 5-round fight where she got a 5th round stoppage due to strikes. So I think Rodriguez is going to pretty much cruise to a 30-27 decision victory here. I will give Sam Hughes the fact that she's tough and has good relentless pace, but I think Rodriguez will be able to stay on her feet the majority of this, employ takedowns of her own at certain points, and then just spend the rest of the time out striking Sam Hughes at distance. So give me Pierre Rodriguez here. I'm not sure if I'll bet this fight, but I will be looking for that decision prop because I do value the toughness of Sam Hughes. I think Pierre Rodriguez gets a decision win here. Okay, up next at bantamweight, we've got a fight between Victor Henry and Rafael Assuncao, 135-pound bout. And we've got two guys that are not very young for the division. You know, Victor Henry, 35 years old, certainly a lot less miles on him, only making his second walk to the UFC cage. But you've got Rafael Assuncao, who's as battle-worn as they come at this weight class, 40 years old for Assuncao. A guy who had 5 fights in the WEC, I think now 17 fights in the UFC, and he's a guy who I was supposed to see him fight for the championship against Renan Barão back in 2014. I think Assuncao pulled out due to some injury, and in stepped TJ Dillashaw on somewhat short notice, shocked the world, ended the decade-long win streak of Barão. It was cool to be there for that, but my point is Assuncao's a guy who's done some of the best work in the bantamweight division over the years, never to get a title shot, and far too late for that. He's done a 4-fight losing streak as Assuncao, and it looks like there's a sharp decline because his durability he once had is now gone. He's been finished in 3 of the 4 fights on this loss streak, and he's never been a very high output striker in general. So the Rafael Assuncao who's submitting people, knocking him out, having close wins over Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw, Rob Font, that Assuncao is gone. And now he's a plus 275 underdog. Victor Henry, the minus 330 favorite in this fight. Victor Henry's 22-5, and he's a guy who stepped up on short notice earlier this year against Raoni Barcelos as a big underdog, like a plus 400, plus 450 underdog. Came through and outclassed Raoni Barcelos in that fight. 181 significant strikes against Barcelos, attempted almost 400, and he's a pupil of the former UFC heavyweight champion Josh Barnett, so no surprise this guy is a killer. Well-rounded guy, 6 knockouts, 8 submissions. He's, I think comes from I think he's on a 15-year career in mixed martial arts is Victor Henry. He's got a jiu-jitsu and catch wrestling background as well as a striking background, so very well-rounded and very fast. He's going to be the guy throwing output, the faster guy. He can get in and out of range, as a lot of people can at this point against Rafael Assuncao. Cody Garbrandt just fought Rafael Assuncao a couple fights ago and was able to piece him up, get in and out of range, knock him out, and Assuncao was not able to knock out the chinniest guy in the division in Garbrandt. That was the gimme fight for Assuncao. Did not pass the test. Now he just got knocked out by Ricky Simone in his last fight. It's kind of sad to see, but Victor Henry, again, 35 years old. This is a good spot for him to make some more noise in the division, because if he's going to do anything, Victor Henry has to do it now at 35. So I just really think that the body work that Victor Henry uses, the leg kicks, Assuncao very susceptible to both of those weapons that Henry uses well. And, Henry's not a great wrestler out in space, but he showed very good takedown defense, defending 6 of 7 takedowns from Raoni Barcelos. So even if Assuncao went for that path, which he needs to, which would be to, for the love of God, take the fight to the ground, avoid getting pieced up on the feet. He doesn't have the best accuracy at 38% takedown accuracy, and Henry's got very good takedown defense, as he showed. And Henry's got very good wrestling, but off of the clinch, off the cage. He gets his takedowns from that range. And to top it all off, Henry has never been finished in all of his, 27 professional fights over 15 years. Never been finished, never been subbed, never been knocked out. So he's giving up a huge amount of experience here, but he's going to be so fast in this fight. And Henry, not always a one-punch knockout kind of guy. I think the accumulation of strikes will actually be enough to knock out Assuncao. And let's just sprinkle that round 3 prop on here. I think round 3 TKO, that's enough time for the cardio, the durability of the legs and body to wear down of Assuncao. And I think at that point, the accumulation of damage, Victor Henry gets that late finish in this fight. So give me Henry very confidently. I do have him parlayed up with a couple other props. And yeah, I don't feel too bad about it even at this price tag. So give me Henry round 3 knockout. Up next at middleweight, we've got a very interesting matchup here between Nick Maximov and Jacob Malkoun, and the money line has been changing. People's opinions on this fight have changed. Money is coming in on Jacob Malkoun. It was minus 160, minus 155 on Maximov for a while. Now it's come all the way down to minus 135 on Maximov, plus 115, plus 120, the underdog on Jacob Malkoun. So I wonder where it'll keep moving. Maybe it will stay right there, but Maximov, 24 years old, training with out of the Nick Diaz Academy, 8-1 record, coming off of his first professional loss against Andre Petrosky earlier this year by submission, ironically enough. Now, Jacob Malkoun coming off of a split decision loss in June to Brandon Allen, and that was largely due to Jacob Malkoun's lack of damage, lack of activity and urgency to try to end the fight. He would hold position with some good, some good takedowns, good top control, but he did get out reversed in some key positions that probably helped aid him in losing that fight, but it was also just that lack of damage. Jacob Malkoun is still very young. I always forget he's only 27 years old. He is going to be the smaller man substantially at 5'9" and a 73-inch reach. Maximov is a big middleweight, 6 foot tall, 76-inch reach. And Maximov is a pretty good striker too. It's improving. He switches stance as well. Strikes pretty well orthodox, goes for the takedowns out of that southpaw stance. He's got pretty good hooks that are powerful up close. Very nice right cross as well. And, usually as soon as he lands something flush, he'll shoot in for the takedown. And he's got pretty good wrestling as well. So wrestling to get the fight to the mat. A good submission offense with his BJJ once he gets it there. He's looked kind of lackluster so far, but you got to remember, this guy is facing all wrestlers. He fought Cody Brendage, who is a college wrestler, Punhele Soriano, a college wrestler, Andre Petrosky, lifelong wrestler, and has some pretty good submission offense as well. Just caught him with that anaconda choke as Maximov was rushing in for the takedown. So he got caught. It happens. As I always mentioned, I mentioned that earlier with Taira, these young guys, when they're undefeated, maybe it takes that one loss to get them back on track, humble them a bit there. So size advantage, BJJ advantage, and I think it's going to be a better wrestling ability for Maximov by far. Jacob Malkoun has looked pretty good in the wrestling, but it's against a lot of non-wrestlers, right? The only wrestler he's fought for Malkoun was Phil Hawes, and it was a flash KO in like 18 seconds, I believe, on short notice for Malkoun. So can't take too much from that, but Jacob Malkoun's got a pretty good defense on the feet, nice snappy jab, but overall he's very slow and plodding for a middleweight and a small guy. Just a little bit too slow for my liking. And, I think if there's a finish, it'll be from the submission side of Nick Maximov. If Malkoun wins, it would be by decision. But unlike matchups where they appear to be close between two strikers, a slightly better striker and a slightly worse striker, sometimes those are close. Either guy can get the finish. Either guy can hurt his opponent. I think in this fight where it's going to be a grappling match, a wrestling match perhaps, I think it's going to be the high-level transitions, the high-level takedown offense and defense that's going to make this look like a much more dominant fight for Nick Maximov. I really think it's going to be that way. So I waited for that price to come down. I took a stab at minus 135 on the Maximov money line. I might look for that decision prop or maybe even the overs in this fight, but I think the overs are going to be pretty juiced heavily. So as I mentioned, this is potentially going to be, a grappling or a wrestling match, and I just think Maximov is the much better guy in that arena, and he causes more damage from that ground and pound position. So give me Maximov pretty confidently to get that decision win, maybe a slight chance that there's a submission victory for Maximov. Up next at featherweight is a short notice replacement bout for Joanderson Brito, who was supposed to take on Melsik Bagdasaryan, who is a fellow explosive fast starter, very good striker and potent finisher, but now he's taking on Lucas Alexander, who is on less than a week's notice for this fight. A fellow Brazilian is Lucas Alexander. He is riding a 5-fight win streak since 2019. The guy is 7-2 professionally, which not that impressive because, you're fighting very low-level competition for Alexander, and he's only gotten 5 fights over the past 3 years. You'd expect more activity. The guy is 27 years old, just like Joanderson Brito, but Lucas Alexander is much bigger, 5'10", very long limbs. I assume he's going to have a marked reach advantage, even though Brito does have pretty long limbs as well for his 5'8" frame. Now, Brito is 13-3-1 over established level of competition, right? A well-rounded array of skills, submission wins, knockouts, coming off of that destruction over Andre Fili in less than a minute in his last fight. That nice jab, overhand right, knockout. So Brito's going to be a massive favorite. I'm not sure what the odds are. They have not dropped yet, but probably going to be so massive it's unplayable, just due to the short notice nature of this fight. Brito's been preparing for a much better version of kind of a similar opponent as Lucas Alexander, and I'll say some nice things about Alexander, though. I mean, the guy is 4-0 in decisions, so not completely finish or bust. He does have 3 knockouts. Both of his losses are submission losses, though, and that's where the trouble for this fight comes in. The guy has very good Muay Thai, good kicks. Very devastating knees are one of his best weapons for Alexander, and good elbows up close, too. A good variety of combinations and attacks when he's in the driver's seat, but he can be taken down at will by very low-level guys. He's been submitted twice, as I mentioned, and he gets outworked in the clinch nonstop. So if you can crowd him, and if Joe Anderson Brito just crowds him, doesn't give him room to work, and use those long, rangy kickboxing weapons, it should be a quick night in the office for Joe Anderson Brito. He could probably knock him out because Alexander's striking defense has a lot of holes in it that he's able to get away with at the low level, but I don't think it's going to work against Brito. Or Brito could just take him down, outwork him on the cage, take him down, and submit him. Lucas Alexander gives up submissions nonstop, always in danger. Even some of the fights he won, he was in danger of getting submitted. So I think Brito wins this fight. I think he wins it under 1.5. The submission is probably live as well, But the odds are probably going to be so inflated it's going to be unplayable. But give me Joe Anderson Brito. Hard to break down this fight without odds, but that's my read from watching the tape on Lucas Alexander. Up next at bantamweight, we've got Mana Martinez taking on Brandon Davis. Two guys that are pretty big for the weight class at 135, both 5'10". It'll be Mana Martinez, the minus 150 favorite, who will have the 6-year youth advantage at 26 years old. Davis, the plus 130-ish underdog. He's 5'10", 72-inch reach. He's 32 years old. This is Davis's second fight in his second stint in the UFC. He was cut before after only securing a victory, I believe, over Randy Costa in round 2 by submission. So we all know what happens to Randy Costa at this point in his career. In an extended fight past round 1, he falls apart. So even that win for Davis is not looking that good over Randy Costa. Notable losses to Giga Chikadze, Kyung Ho Kang, and most recently he got knocked out. For the first time in his career, he got knocked out by Dana Bakary in round 1. And it's troubling to me a lot of things about Brandon Davis. He doesn't seem to be very much improved in this second stint, but he looks very slow to, read the big looping strikes that came his way from Dana Bakary. A lot of them were very heavily loaded up, seemed telegraphed, and they just kept on finding their mark on Brandon Davis's, head. So that's troubling. He's just going to be at a speed disadvantage. He's not the best wrestler. When he does go for takedowns urgently against a guy like Giga Chikadze, which was smart, he didn't have the best ability to hold the fight down. He even got reversed at one point over by Giga Chikadze. So Mana Martinez is a guy who, over his loss to Ronnie Lawrence most recently, showed very good get-up game against a strong wrestler in Ronnie Lawrence. And, Mana Martinez is fast, powerful. He showed a lot of good grit and determination to, get knocked down several times in the early going of the fight by Ronnie Lawrence. Landed knockdowns of his own in round 3. So good feints, good combinations, good power and speed. Out of his 9 wins for Mana Martinez, 8 of them are by knockout, and a lot of them very early as well. So I think he's going to have a speed advantage, a power advantage, a cardio advantage in this fight. And Brandon Davis, another troubling thing I see from him is he allows a guy like the power striker and Dana Bakary to dictate where the fight takes place. Davis was allowing himself to get backed up against the perimeter of the cage, cornered, and eventually knocked out. So, not the best cardio for Brandon Davis. He does fall apart in extended fights. And in rounds 2 and rounds 3, when he's even slower than he is initially, his defense falls apart greatly. So this is a case of Davis not looking good in his last fight, a case of Mana Martinez coming off of a loss, but he looked decent in that loss, in all honesty. So without the takedown threat from Brandon Davis, I think Mana Martinez gets a under 1.5 round knockout in this fight. I think he could be a bigger favorite here. I like his money line, and I'll look for Mana Martinez by knockout if I can get even money or better on that prop. So give me Martinez, round 1 or round 2 knockout. Okay, up next at light heavyweights, we've got Alonzo Menifield taking on Misha Cirkunov. That's right, Cirkunov is back up to 205 pounds where he fought most of his career. He recently has gone 0-2, attempting to cut down to 185. He lost last year to Krzysztof Jotko in a split decision, and he lost this year to Wellington Turman by armbar. So Now he's going back up to 205, where the division is so small it certainly needs him. And Menifield, 12-3 record. Misha Cirkunov 15-8. And we have, a much longer career for Misha Cirkunov, who's only 35 years old. I always forget. I think he's older for some reason. He's going to be the bigger man here slightly, and only 1 year older. Menifield is also 34 years old. So Menifield coming off of that round 1 win over the fraudulent record of Askar Mozarov. He won by crucifix, got the early takedown on Mozarov, and was able to just ground and pound him out. He's a minus 220 favorite here, is Menifield. Plus 180 can be had for the underdog Cirkunov, and I can see why that is at first glance, just because, Menifield is actually coming off of a win here. Not the most, star-studded resume in the UFC, certainly. I mean, we're talking about Menifield just beat Mozarov in his debut. Maybe that was on short notice. I can't remember. He lost by decision to William Knight, a fight where everybody thought that was going to end inside the distance. What did he win? He beat Ed Herman over the course of a decision, and he beat Fabio Cherant in round 1, which was also a short notice debut. So not the best streak for Menifield, honestly. He is a former football player and certainly fights like he did on the football field, right? Just explosive bursts of energy, explosive bursts of chaos. And, 11 of his 15 fights for Menifield have finished under 1.5, and he's finished 11 of his 12 wins. So very killer-be-killed guy. He has only been finished one time by OSP, by knockout. Misha Cirkunov, very similar. He's been finished in 7 of his 8 losses. I think 13 of his 15 wins have been finishes for him, and 18 of 23 fights for Misha Cirkunov have been under 1.5. So under 1.5 is at minus 110. I put a bet on that. I like it. I think for the odds, not that bad of a bet. I've also parlayed up the fight doesn't go to decision, since both of these guys, out of their number of fights and number of years fighting, have only been a decision 3 times apiece. So, I'm parlaying up that fight doesn't go. I like the under 1.5 as a straight bet at that cost. And I actually like Cirkunov to win this fight as an underdog here. Plus 180 underdog. I think this fight is more 50-50 than not. You can give the power to Menifield. You can give the speed early on to Menifield. And you can even give him the durability, since he's not the one who's been finished so many times. He's been finished 1 time. Misha Cirkunov has been finished 7 times. So I'll give him the durability. I think the fight-ending ability is just about equal. You've got all the experience for Misha Cirkunov. You've got the wrestling, the BJJ, the clinch strength, all goes to Cirkunov, and I want to say the cardio actually goes to him as well. Neither guy is, got elite cardio, but Cirkunov certainly works through that fatigue a lot better, and Menifield gasses out so badly from any sort of grappling exchange, and a lot of times he actually, engages in these. He's attempted takedowns on his last 6 opponents straight. That will not, it wouldn't behoove him to do that against Cirkunov, who's got very good reversals and very good submissions from every angle. North-south chokes. He's got the arm triangles, the guillotines, even creative ones like that Peruvian necktie, and he, rear naked chokes. He can take the back pretty well. We saw Menifield out-transitioned by William Knight recently, so I just, the things I don't like about Cirkunov, obviously he gets smoked early. The way that Ryan Spann hit him with that right cross, knocked him out in 60 seconds. He can get finished, he does like to engage. He's almost more comfortable striking exchanges than Menifield is, which would not do him well in this fight. So, you would hope that Cirkunov just goes, catches Menifield overswinging early, clinches up with him, and gets him down to the mat, where we've seen Menifield have trouble before. I think that's the way this goes more often than not. 50-50 fight, and I've got one guy as a plus 180. He's got better wins. I think he's got a more dangerous game to him. So give me Misha Cirkunov for a late round 1 submission. Obviously, it's on the table that he just gets knocked out quickly too. So my plays for this are the under 1.5. The fight doesn't go. I like both of those. But give me Misha Cirkunov to pull off the upset here at plus 180 odds and get that round 1 submission. Okay, I'll be surprised if this next fight at middleweight does not entertain greatly. We've got Duško Todorovic taking on the Beverly Hills Ninja Jordan Wright. Both guys have very shiny records. Jordan Wright, a 12-3 professional record. Duško with an 11-3 record as well professionally. But both guys have found themselves 2-3 in the UFC. So not going that well. We'll see who can right the ship. We've got Duško Todorovic, who's a minus 200. minus 215 favorite at this point. Money has come in on him quite a bit over the past week. Jordan Wright can be had around plus 165, plus 170 as the underdog, and I'm surprised it's not more in some ways. Not that I agree with it being any more, but Jordan Wright is just so terrible. I mean, he's never been to decision, never been to round 3, never even been past the 1.5 round mark. He came into the Dana White Contender Series a few years ago with one of the most padded 9-0 records, all by first-round finishes you've ever seen. Absolute bums. He even landed 5 submissions before coming into the UFC, all in round 1. And, yeah, I mean, so he shows proficiency in that, but the guys he was fighting were so inexperienced. He got knocked out in round 1 by Fluffy Hernandez. Luckily, that got changed to a no contest due to a failed drug test, but still, the guy comes in. He gets a cut stoppage over Ike Villanueva by, I think, a spinning heel kick cut the eyebrow of Ike. So he got lucky there. I really feel like Ike Villanueva could have won that fight if it got extended any further than round 1. He also got a round 1 stoppage over Jamie Pickett, surprisingly. So not good wins, but other than that, his 3 losses have been to Marc-Andre Barriault most recently by submission, Bruno Silva by knockout, Joaquin Buckley by knockout. So I think the better resume goes to Duško Todorovic, who also has a 10-0 amateur record, a better array of skills overall, and at least has shown that he can go and operate past 1.5 rounds. He's been to 2 decisions, going 1-1 in those. Duško has that 1 decision win on the Contender Series, and then he has the 1 decision loss to Gregory Rodriguez, which is, almost like a feather in your cap at this point that you even survived 3 rounds against RoboCop, which is shocking because Duško, the one knock on him is his striking defense can be so poor. His hands are down. He pulls his head back in a straight line. Chin is always up in the air. And although he's got very good close range striking, nice powerful hooks, uppercuts, overhand rights, knees, every time he's trying to end the fight, his chin is straight up in the air. So that is why I'd be uncomfortable paying more than minus 200 on Duško Todorovic, even though I think he's got way more ways to win, the better fighter with an actual ceiling to his career. Jordan Wright is dangerous in round 1, and he could land something crazy because Todorovic likes to get in wars and likes to, keep his chin up in the air. So, obviously I'm going to pick Duško Todorovic to win here. I don't hate the under 1.5. It's just way too much, it should hit, but it's just way too much of a price tag. I think it's juiced to over minus 200 at this point. I saw some people get in, very sharp people, nailed that one at like a minus 140, range. I don't hate that. Fight doesn't go to decision is probably a parlay piece. I don't quite know what that's at yet. But Duško, you could have gotten him at minus 160 to minus 180. I wouldn't hate that, but anything over minus 200, yeah, you might just want to play the under 1.5 here instead of playing that because Jordan Wright could land something significant on Duško. But I think Duško should just take this fight to the ground and pound Jordan Wright. He did that against Daquan Townsend. He did that against Maki Pitolo. It went very well. He got the takedown, went to mount, and just rained down ground and pound. He also does have good BJJ as well, and just way better in the clinch overall. So everything goes in the favor of Duško in this fight, except for the first couple minutes. Could go in Jordan Wright's favor if Todorovic is lacking defensively. But give me a round 1 ground and pound TKO stoppage for Duško in this fight. Up next is an exciting fight between 2 top-ranked flyweights. We got Askarov taking on Brandon Royval. Both are very exciting fighters. Both are very active fighters in their own, respects. So we've got kind of a weird situation here where Askarov is coming off of his first professional loss. Royval coming off of a first-round submission win. Yet it's Askarov that is the moderate to heavy favorite here at minus 240 over Brandon Royval, who is the plus 200 underdog. So it largely is due to the clash of styles in this fight as to why that is. 14-1-1 record for Askarov. He started fighting top-ranked flyweights right away in the UFC. He came off of the ACB promotion in Russia. He's a Dagestani, combat sambo background, freestyle wrestling background, and decent striking too for Askarov. He came off of the ACB promotion where he was 11 wins, no losses, all of them finishes, 7 subs, 4 TKO stoppages. Now in the UFC, he's 3-1-1. Right off the bat, he faced Brandon Moreno, got a draw against him. And then since then, he's gone 3-1, defeating Pantoja, defeating Joseph Benavidez, defeating Tim Elliott, which was a very unorthodox striker that he had to face there. Both guys, Royval and Askarov, have a victory over him. And then he just recently dropped in March that decision result to Kai Kara-France, who would not be denied. So how did Kai Kara-France beat him? He was able to, he dropped round 1 and then came back in round 2 and 3 and beat Askarov in those rounds with just a combination of high output striking, in and out movement, and the ability to shut down the takedown offense as Askarov was, getting tired and sloppy with them. He still was controlled in the clinch for periods of time, but overall it was Kai Kara-France that landed more significant strikes, damage, and things like that. So Royval would have to change his game up completely. I like Royval. He's 2-4 in decision results, mostly a finisher. He's finished 12 of his 14 wins. Royval will be the slightly bigger man here at 5'9", with a slight reach advantage of like 3.5 inches. And they're both 30 years old, so both in their prime at flyweight. It's just that takedown defense for Brandon Royval that really gives us cause for concern here to bet on him, right? 39% takedown defense. He's been controlled by Rogerio Bontorin, controlled by Pantoja, taken down a couple times and stopped by submission. And then Moreno was able to take him down a couple of times and TKO him. So it usually does not lead to him winning minutes in the ground. He can't really get out of those positions. He can have some scramble ability here and there, but oftentimes the good grapplers put his shoulders flat on the mat and he's just stuck there trying to strike off of his back. So, currently 4-2 in the UFC is Royval. 3 of those 4 were finishes, as I mentioned, and he's been finished in both of his losses. So the perfect scenario for Brandon Royval would be to follow that Kai Kara-France game plan. He'd have to, really use that good in and out movement that Royval has on the feet. Strike, get out of range, stay away from the clinching, stay away from the takedown threat, and just shut down all of the takedowns that Kai Kara-France was able to. But Royval is just not that guy. He always gets taken down. Kicking is a big part of his game. The kicks lead to him getting taken down. Submissions are a big part of his game. He has 9 submissions out of his victories. That's often not going to lead to success against Askarov, right? So, Askarov also, one thing I didn't mention, he does have really good striking. He's got both power, speed, accuracy. The ability to close distance, I think, is overrated for Askarov too. He's got a good 1-2 that he, uses good footwork to close the distance with. You saw that over Tim Elliott. Elliott was never knocked out in the UFC, still hasn't been. He almost got round 1 knocked out by Askarov. If Askarov didn't go for takedowns and wrestling, he probably could have finished Tim Elliott on the feet with a super nice southpaw jab, left hook jab combination that almost put the lights out of Tim Elliott. So this is a southpaw versus southpaw matchup, and Askarov is both dangerous offensively on the ground, off of his back. He's got all kinds of submissions, and I think he wins minutes here and gets a decision result once again. So the money line is set up where it's such a big underdog price in Royval, who has come through as an underdog before, that I don't want to count him out and bet on the money line of Askarov. But I've got a feeling that it's going to be a decision victory once again for Askarov, just winning minutes on the feet and on the ground. So I'm going to wait for that decision prop for Askarov. I might end up touching that if it's a decent price. But for now, there's no bet, but I will say Askarov wins this fight by decision. Okay, up next is the co-main event at bantamweight between Jonathan Martinez and Cub Swanson. That's right, Cub Swanson, who fought pretty much everybody that was ever known or unknown at 145 in King of the Cage, WEC, the UFC. He's now switching to bantamweight, and this is at 38 years old, 1 month shy of 39 years old for Cub Swanson. So he's the plus 160 underdog currently. Jonathan Martinez is the minus 200 favorite here. So huge experience advantage, as much as anybody could have for Cub Swanson. Huge entertainment advantage for Cub Swanson too. I mean, this guy has won, so many fight of the nights, and he's the type of fighter where you, either if you're going to fill a spot in a lackluster card like this, you'd want to call Cub Swanson. He's going to be in a banger. Same if you want to build up one of the top guys, like a Brian Ortega or a Frankie Edgar or somebody like that, you would give them Cub Swanson because, he's going to put on a very good, exciting performance and, either hand somebody a highlight reel or, put them on the receiving end of one. So the guy's got the experience advantage, and he basically is going to want to bait Jonathan Martinez, a very technical Muay Thai practitioner, into a war because Cub Swanson keeps his hands down, he pressures forward, feints a lot, and then, throws punches from very strange angles. His strikes often come, off the hip. He's got a wide array of unorthodox kicks and things like that he uses. So he's going to want to bait Jonathan Martinez into a unorthodox war, and I don't know if at 135 and at 38, if he's still fast enough to get away with some of those things. Martinez is a very slick Muay Thai guy. He's got very good knees, good kicks, and good counters, and he maintains distance very well. So, furthermore, Cub Swanson sometimes will use the takedown threat against certain opponents that don't have very good BJJ. Jonathan Martinez has pretty good takedown defense as well. Martinez is 16-4 so far, slowly building up. This is going to be the biggest test of his career so far. And oddly enough, Cub Swanson, this will be a step up in competition lately for him. He went from fighting the top guys like Ortega, Edgar, Holloway, to, then going back against some guys like, Giga Chikadze recently. But, he also has given, like Kron Gracie, who he was able to dispose of pretty easily. And then, like I mentioned, Darren Elkins last December as well. So he's kind of bouncing around with his talent level. They're either like, kind of scrubs and don't belong, or they're like the top elite guys. So Martinez will fit right in with, we're kind of get to figure out where he's at in the rankings here. So, it's a good step up for both guys right now. I do think 10 years of youth in the favor of Martinez at 28 years old. I think his clean striking is going to win minutes for at least 2 out of 3 rounds. And I think, the speed, this being his natural weight class, although Martinez has had trouble with the weight at 135 a couple of times, I just really think he's going to be the guy here who is going to have to be on his P's and Q's for 15 minutes, win at least 2 out of 3 rounds, and he's probably not going to knock out Cub Swanson, right? I mean, Cub Swanson, legendary durability, only ever knocked out by that iconic flying knee in 8 seconds from Jose Aldo in WEC. And then last year, he took that Giga kick to the body, that liver shot that TKO'd him 60 seconds in. So, short of something like that from Jonathan Martinez, I think it'll be a decision victory for Martinez. Give me the younger guy in his weight class here. Although at the odds, honestly, I bet Martinez at minus 170. I don't know if I would do that at minus 200. We're starting to lose value on him. Cub Swanson at this price tag, plus 160, looking like a pretty good underdog. But again, this just way too old, way too past his prime, and I don't think Martinez will fall for getting into a war at this point. Okay, we've made it all the way to the main event of the fight card. Alexa Grasso taking on Viviane Araujo at women's flyweight, 125-pound bout for a potential 5 rounds here. And I think that 5 round is certainly a key component in this fight. You've got Grasso, 14-3 record, sitting at a minus 200 to minus 210 favorite price tag. Viviane Araujo, 11-3 record, very impressive as well. She is the plus 165 to plus 170 underdog in this bout. And, Alexa Grasso, even though she's younger by 6 years at 29 years old, Viviane Araujo all the way up there at 35, they match up very well physically. A slight 2-inch reach advantage for Araujo, but they're both 5'5", similar build to them. A little bit more of a trim physique for Viviane Araujo, and she's super athletic, very light on her feet, and very fast early. And she comes from a BJJ base, is how she started mixed martial arts. She's a black belt in BJJ, utilizes some good wrestling as well, averaging over a couple takedowns per fight so far. But, she has pretty good striking as well, but it's at range. Up close, people can fluster her. If you get in close in, phone booth range, make it a brawl, kind of like Jessica I was able to do, sometimes she does fall apart. Same with her last fight against Andrea Lee early. She got knocked down by, some short hooks. So she's able to rally back and use her takedowns and her BJJ to sort of, nullify a lot of opponents who have the striking, but she hasn't fought many of them. She had that knockout win in her debut up a weight class over Talita Bernardo way back in the day. Round 3 knockout. The rest of her fights have all been decision results, but besides that, she fought Andrea Lee in her last fight, who's, a striker, was able to ground her and, win the fight that way. Now, before that, she's fighting girls like Alexis Davis, a wrestler, Montana De La Rosa, a wrestler, Roxanne Modafferi, a judo player and a BJJ girl. So she's not fighting a lot of strikers. She can look very good in the striking realm against a lot of non-strikers, right? Now, Alexa Grasso has been fighting a lot of kind of a mixed bag of opponents. Early on, she tasted defeat at the hands of Tatiana Suarez, got subbed by her, and she's gotten a lot better. Now in her last fight, Alexa Grasso got her only submission win to date, her first one over Joanne Wood. So I like to see that she's improving because she is a striker at heart, So based on their past, it's kind of a striker versus wrestler matchup here. But Grasso showing some very good submission now, and get up ability, and we're seeing Viviane Araujo. She's coming to the UFC with a very good striking ability as well. So I think Grasso will be better in the striking. She's better defensively, has better output, and most importantly, better cardio. So now that she's showing a little bit of improved BJJ offense, at least, I like that a lot. That's a good sign coming into this fight. We've also seen Alexa Grasso be more successful in decision wins, right? Overall, in her 14-3 record, she's 9-2 in decisions. Is Grasso. Viviane Araujo only been there a few times. She's 4-2 in decisions. And again, against softer competition, you're getting the Joanne Wood submission win recently for Grasso this year. You've got a win over Macy Barber. You've got a win over Ji Yeon Kim. I rate some of that a lot more impressively than what I've seen, from like beating Roxanne Modafferi, beating Alexis Davis earlier in Araujo's career, but that was late in Davis's career. So, we've got a longer pro career by a few years for Grasso, 4 Invicta appearances as well. And she's just got that close-range boxing is pretty good. So she throws in combination pretty well, pretty diverse array of unpredictable combinations does Grasso have. And, she's 3-0 at flyweight now that she's in up a weight class now. So cardio, striking, the improvements and youth to be had here, and just minute-winning ability, I think will go to Grasso. Now, where this becomes interesting is I think Viviane Araujo certainly has the potential to win in round 1, just win that round. I think it gets worse for her as this fight goes on, whereas I think Grasso gets better as this fight goes on. So you can live bet Alexa Grasso after round 1. If she gets taken down and controlled, you get like -170 or better as a price tag for Grasso. I would take that, and I think she's going to get better as this fight goes. Better cardio and a better ability to win minutes later in fights and secure those decision victories. So give me Grasso to win by decision here. I've got a moneyline bet on her at, I think it was like -195 or -190. I got it at earlier. 7 out of 9 UFC fights have gone to decision for Grasso. 6 out of 7 have gone to decision for Viviane Araujo. I think this fight goes to the scorecards, over 4.5, sitting around like -220 or so. But I would just take the Grasso decision or the Grasso money line or live bet her after round 1. Give me Grasso by decision pretty confidently here. Okay, you guys, there you have it. All 12 fights broken down for UFC Vegas 62. Alexa Grasso versus Viviane Araujo in the main event at flyweight. I'm actually excited for that main event. It should be an interesting one, and there's some good fights on this card. As you know, these low name value cards usually deliver in some weird, mysterious ways, always entertaining, and then after this weekend, we get UFC 280, so stay tuned for that live stream on Wednesday I'll be having with Liam Picks Fights. My best bets and props later on this week will have all of my betting action, and we'll move on to the big pay-per-view next week, so hit that like, hit that subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys very soon. Cheers.